as the presentation view.
Oh, okay. Why am I not seeing the presentation view anymore? There we go. Okay. So can you see the presentation, Heather?
Yes. It looks
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for joining. My name is Sandy Kinnett, and today we're going to go over operations and what that looks like from a career standpoint, and we'll also talk a little bit about the curriculum as well. Um, Probably some of you have joined several of these calls. We've had them for consulting, for finance, for healthcare. Anyways, I just am glad to talk to those of you that are interested in considering operations as a career path. So this is the Career Management Center team for the full-time MBA students. This is probably a slide that you have seen, but the four individuals on the top are the coaches, and we each have different areas of students that we work with. So I'm the primary coach for operations, and that also means I work closely with the operations and analytics club as well. And then my colleague Heather Yaki is on the call, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi there. I'm part of the employer relations and recruiting team, and the specific industries that I cover are financial services, manufacturing, tech, um, marketing, CPG, kind of a random hodgepodge of other different industries. And so we work in conjunction with the coaches. They're definitely your advisors, and all wisdom points their direction. A lot of times we have a lot of information, so we end up meeting you. So looking forward to working with everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, and then we also have three current students on the call with us today that are in the operations and analytics concentration and are doing summer internships and operations roles. So I'm excited that they've taken the time out of their busy work schedules to join us today. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. Fleming, if you want to kick it off.
Hey, like Sandy was saying, my name is Fleming Brooks. I actually go by my middle name, which is Griffin. Um, and right now I'm interning with Yellowwood, or their parent company is known as Great Southern Wood Preserving. I decided to come to Yellowwood because it kind of brought me closer to home where I grew up in South Alabama. My background is I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Auburn University. I worked as a manufacturing engineer prior to Owen, and currently I'm working in the treatment operations support and quality control group within Yellowwood. So I'm kind of doing a lot of process engineering, process management, and kind of striking a balance between my previous experience and kind of where I want to go with my MBA. So um, I am concentrating in operations and analytics, obviously, and also finance. And yeah, I've really enjoyed my internship so far. Really enjoyed my first year at Owen, and I'm very excited for the second. So
Awesome. Thank you. And okay, Fleming, I had you as Griffin on this slide, and then when I saw that your Zoom name was, I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, Anna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Anna Gorman. I am at CVS Health this summer in operations strategy for retail. I have a sales background, so for the past 10 years, I've been working with a lot of different industries of a lot of different sizes. So it's been very generalist, and I knew that I wanted to get to a place that wasn't that. So I have applied when I was applying for internships, so many places. I worked with everybody in the CMC. And even with my education, I have too many uh, concentrations: operations and analytics, strategy, and human and organizational performance, with an emphasis in entrepreneurship. Don't recommend that. But yes, I absolutely love CVS Health and am excited for the opportunity to share my experience with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Max.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Max Hackenbrack. Currently with the Vanderbilt Credit Union this summer in calling myself a strategic operations intern. Um, but yeah, I have a very large mandate from them over the summer. But before Owen, I was an engineer. I have a degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Tennessee. Then worked for the Department of Defense for about 6 years before coming to Owen. Um, yeah, really liking my credit union gig. It's certainly giving me a more strategic outlook on operations than obviously what I was getting as an engineer. So it's a great getting a kind of bird's eye view on how a business operates and giving me that kind of business experience that I was looking for this summer. So yeah, it's a little bit about me here on campus, obviously concentrating in ops as well as strategy. Um, Vice President of Finance for the Ops Club and President of the Owen Student Government Association. So you'll probably see my face quite a lot throughout this year. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, so if anyone has any questions about OSGA, you can also ask Max. Okay, thanks y'all so much. And we'll open it up for Q&A later, but definitely want you all that are incoming to take advantage of the perspective of Griffin and Anna and Max. So today we're going to talk about operations and analytics at Owen and kind of go over like what that looks like from a curriculum standpoint of view. We'll also go through the recruiting timelines and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of kind of the cadence of what that looks like. And the three students on the call can kind of address their experience with that as well and what the time commitment looks like, how you balance your schoolwork, your teamwork, your commitments to your clubs with also the career management process and your internship search. And we will have Q&A so that you can get all of your questions answered and then also review any resources and next steps as you kind of hit the last part of the summer before you're here at Owen for the next couple of years. So the curriculum for operations and analytics is completing at least one of the following of the supply chain management or the management of service operations, and then completing one of the following of either business analytics or spreadsheets for business analytics. And then in addition to that, you're also going to be choosing from all sorts of different electives. And so I would love to ask the students, how have you navigated the curriculum in terms of the electives piece?
I can go first. I absolutely loved business analytics and spreadsheets and data viz. Those were some of my favorite. I am excited to take the required course next year, but I didn't want to do the what's on the last slide, the supply chain. Yeah, I wasn't into that. But you'll find your groove.
Yeah, I think that there's like a wide variation of different electives offered. Max or Griffin, do you have anything to kind of add to that?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think overall, in terms of if you picking and choosing what electives you want to do, obviously just think about what are things you're generally interested in, what things do you think will help you in your search for an internship or in a future career, and just kind of start there. Before you do, class scheduling for whatever mod you're scheduling for, ASA is going to send you a big old spreadsheet that has all the classes that are going to be available. So yeah, I always use that kind of as the basis and just figure out what classes are available and what aren't available. Some classes there's kind of a consistent timeline in terms of like when they're offered throughout the year, but kind of go based off of that. And yeah, basically, since you need 8 hours from this list, basically every class is 2 hours. There are some exceptions, but basically every class is 2 hours. So if you're looking at this list, you basically need to do 4 of them, right? And that gets you the 8. And then the required classes on that previous slide. So basically, as long as you're doing at least one ops class every mod, you're going to be more than on track to satisfy concentrations on operations. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Be sure to take one ops class a mod, about 4 2-hour classes every mod, and you're going to be golden in terms of satisfying any sort of graduation requirements.
And Max, that may even answer the question that was just put in the chat, is that like, you would be able to take more than just the 8 hours. Like
Oh, yeah.
time for that.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the benefits of being on the mod system, is that it does open up opportunities to take more electives and the classes that you're really interested in. So Tisha, I hope that that helped answer your question.
And the nice thing about the mod system is if you get a class and you absolutely hate it, you only got to last for 7 weeks. So it'll be over very quickly.
Yep.
And I noticed you mentioned required electives. So I took both of the required ones. Highly recommend it because they're completely different and loved them both.
Awesome.
So to kind of add to that, I do go by the one ops class per mod rule of thumb, but um, I've really made an effort to kind of jump into classes that I'm not as familiar with or as like I would consider comfortable with. In my previous school, I didn't ever take analytics. We kind of touched on it, but I really had no understanding. And after taking Mod 1's analytics, it really got me interested in diving into more analytical classes, stuff based on analytics. So that's kind of how I've been scheduling. Just kind of what Max said. What do you think you'll get the most out of? What do you think will be the most useful to you? And that's kind of been my approach with the ops classes and finance classes. But for ops specifically, diving into stuff that sounds a little trickier, stuff I'm less familiar with. It's a great opportunity to learn it, and the stakes aren't as high when you're in a classroom setting as they are when you're in a job and you have to really grind and learn something you're less familiar with. So it's my 2 cents.
I also want to do another plug for business analytics because you get to use tools like Python that you can put on your resume. And just to have a better understanding of what the class is like, we had a huge list of variables of employees, and we had to predict how many would leave. So it was really cool. Like, that was an amazing class. Highly recommend.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so moving on to the next slide here, if I can. Okay, sorry, y'all. I'm having a little issue with Zoom here. I need to go back up. Sorry. I don't know why this is not letting me move. Okay, Heather, I might need your, hold on, guys. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as far as like one of the things that the operations and analytics like is also STEM designated, which some of you probably already know. But that, especially for international students, allows you to prolong your OPT, which makes you available to work in the US for 24 months. So that's like an added benefit too of doing the operations and analytics curriculum. These are just some faculty spotlights. So each of the operations and analytics faculty members have specific areas within the field of operations and analytics that they do a lot of research in. I think that you'll get to know the faculty really well. Again, one of the benefits of Owen is because it's a smaller business school, you do have access to faculty. And so I think that's really, really cool. So you can see kind of the specific areas within operations and analytics that these professors kind of focus in. This is the Operations Management Club Board. The clubs The professional clubs are going to provide a lot of help and support as it relates to recruiting, in addition to the Career Management Center team. They're going to host a symposium. All of the professional clubs host a symposium in the beginning of the year to give you an education on, what it's like to be in that career path and what day-to-day job responsibilities are. So I think that this is definitely like a great resource for you. There are other events that they do, second year panels that will help you understand what internships some of the second years did. So I think that would be a great resource as you think about pursuing this career path and joining the professional clubs. So Max and Fleming and Griffin, do y'all want to add anything about like your involvement in the club since you are on the board?
So I'll start. I got interested in joining the Ops Management Club because I was a little confused with the recruiting process. I didn't realize that the recruiting process for each individual area you want to go into, whether it's finance, whether it's tech, they all have different recruiting periods. And I would say, most of the people in our class want to kind of overachieve and jump at every opportunity that they can. So when I saw a bunch of people applying to like investment banking roles, I was like, oh, I should be recruiting too. And I didn't really understand that, operations focused roles come available later. So I was recruiting throughout, all of Mod 1, all of Mod 2, all of Mod 3. And then, I kind of wished I would have had more guidance in terms of recruiting going in. So that's why I wanted to be a part of the ops club and specifically the communications chair, so I can kind of get that information across to incoming students at Owen and kind of give them a little more guidance than not that the previous ops club didn't do a great job, they did, but more recruiting specific information pertaining to ops and analytics. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I helped put together some events last year. They kind of showed you the ropes as a first year, and second year we're going to be putting together a lot of events for recruiting and a lot of information based events for that specifically. So that's what I'm doing here.
Great.
Yeah, kind of adding on that. I definitely joined the ops club just to kind of join the professional club of the career I kind of intended to go down. Again, such an important part about the MBA experience, the Owen experience is getting involved here on campus. Long story short, if all you're doing is coming to school, going to classes, and leaving, you're kind of doing it wrong. So I encourage all of you to get involved, join more than one club, more than one professional club, because each of them do, on top of professional help, like with recruiting, like with the symposium, there's a lot of fun stuff that can happen. I know with the Ops Club, we did tours of like Amazon and Nissan this past year, but we also did a brewery tour with HOPA, the HOP Club, with a brewery in town that was owned by a Owen alum. So there's a lot of fun opportunities to network, get to know Nashville, and get to know the professional environment with whatever club you join. So I definitely encourage all of you to at least join. If you're determined to be ops, definitely join the ops club. Or if there's any other professional area you're interested in, join that club as well. Definitely, I know this coming year, like Griffin was saying, we definitely wanted to be more involved, be more out front. I know our symposium this past year was virtual, and I know Jagadish really wants to make that an in-person symposium this upcoming year. So hopefully we can make that happen. But there are definitely going to be a host of events that we're going to be doing, get involved. And so it's just a great way to get to know your classmates, get to know ops and ops opportunities much better. So I definitely encourage all of you to join Ops Club.
Great. Yeah, and just to highlight again, I mean, it's very common that students are members of a couple of professional clubs. So some of you on this call may be considering operations within healthcare or operations within consulting. And so you may be a member of the Operations and Analytics Club in addition to the Vanderbilt Business Healthcare Association, or in addition to the Owen Strategy and Consulting Club. And usually, the clubs are trying to do a good job of not having like conflicting events so that as a member, you can attend most of the programming for those clubs. But yeah, definitely common to be, members of a couple of different clubs. So this slide is a little bit about a career overview. Operations, again, is, kind of across a lot of different industries. So most of the Owen students that are going into operations roles, I would say land and consulting, technology, and healthcare are probably the top 3 industries that you would find operations roles being most common for Owen students for both internships and full-time roles. And then I wanted to pull kind of a sample list of where some of the common employers have been over the last 3 to 5 years and where they've hired Owen students that want to do operations. So you can see again, like the bigger takeaway is that it's across a lot of different industries. And so that's something that as you're working with your career management center coach, if you know you want to do operations, if that's like your priority, then maybe being a little bit more broad on industry, or if you know that you have like a specific target industry, you can prioritize your company list that way. But these again are just kind of a sample of some of the employers that have hired Owen students in recent years. So we talked a little bit about the timeline and understanding that, and Griffin mentioned, it can feel overwhelming as an incoming student because there are some career paths that have earlier recruiting timelines and some career paths that tend to be later in the recruiting cycle. So what I have been telling students that I've been meeting that are coming in as first-year students that are interested in operations and analytics is that Mod 1 really gives you an opportunity to learn more about what that means for you and what you're kind of joining the club. You're getting a sense of what internships the second years did over the summer. And you're really starting to attend the employer information sessions. So the companies that are coming on campus to recruit ops and analytics students, or hosting office hours or events targeting those students. And that's kind of a good learning period and a good ramp up period. For the most part, if you're going to be pursuing internships in operations and analytics, you're going to be submitting applications more in the Mod 2 timeframe, with interviews taking place in Mod 3 and Mod 4. So Mod 1 and Mod 2 are really an opportunity to kind of prepare, get your story down, get your company target list ready, and then you're applying and doing a lot of volume around that in Mod 2, with interviews really picking up in January. Heather, I don't know if you have anything to add to this, since you are working closely with the employers that are coming on campus and hosting events.
Yeah, I love what Griffin said earlier too about feeling like the FOMO of it all, in terms of like the pressure, I think, that you're just going to feel when you get to school, because some of these recruiting timelines are so early, can make it feel like, what are you doing? And in a way, like, interestingly enough, I kind of think that's a positive, because it's going to help you get prepped to by the time that you get those interviews in January, February, you're going to be so ready. But some of the angst I think that you feel earlier, to Sandy's point, with some of these earlier timelines, there will be things and nothing will be happening in your world. And so it can seem like nothing's happening. So that doesn't mean success. And I think with some of these recruiters, what's great is if you can, begin to develop a relationship sooner. I'm sure all of these folks can talk about a bit about how that makes it easier later when you know someone earlier. So for you, it might just look different. It may not look like, oh my gosh, I had this conversation in 1 week and then the next week I got this offer. It's going to look like a very drawn out thing. So what a great time to practice. But like Sandy said, it's very traditional in the sense that every year we do continue to see those interviews popping up more in January, February timeframe. There may be some onesies, twosies that happen earlier, but for the most part, the bulk of it is happening during early spring.
Yeah. And, I think, again, like you'll have these earlier, if you are attending one of the national career fairs, you'll potentially be in the pipeline earlier. And we have programming to help you prepare for those earlier interactions with employers. If you end up in that scenario, if you're going to National Black or if you're going to MBA Veterans, and any of the other career fairs, those would be like earlier pipelines for companies. But again, the majority of students, with the exception of HOP students and investment banking, those students are going to be interviewing in Mod 2. And then for you all, if you, continue on operations and analytics, and, if that looks like a LDP program, or if that looks like operations within a consulting firm or just within a corporate setting or manufacturing setting, like a lot of that will happen after the holiday break. So hopefully that helps clear up any questions that you have about the recruiting timeline. But Anna, Griffin, Max, anything to add to that from what you experienced in recruiting?
My recruiting timeline was a little strange because I started in the summer because I went to Forte, and that conference was a great opportunity to meet people, but it really kicked off that internship recruiting timeline too early for me. So like Griffin, I interviewed throughout the entire thing. For the internship I have now, my first interview was in November and my second interview was in March. So it is very daunting to have to wait all that time. But meanwhile, you're still recruiting for other things. So it's a process.
It's a process for sure. And you just have to be flexible with some of this too, because, it's kind of a little bit like Anna said, like, you have your first interview and then you're waiting, but you're still like applying and interviewing for other things. So definitely have to kind of maintain a level of resiliency and, calm as it sort of plays out in different ways. Max or Griffin, did you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I think Heather touched on it. She said that anxiety can help you a little bit, and building those relationships early can really be beneficial. I definitely experienced that with a handful of companies where I built strong relationships early on, and um, when it came time to interview and accept a position, there were a few companies who seemed really interested in me. um, so while it's important to be cognizant of this and cognizant of when you're, formally recruiting and when you should expect to apply an interview, the whole year you're technically recruiting because you're building these connections. There's going to be events throughout the whole year, and I think that's important to participate in as well. So
Great.
Yeah, I'll add, kind of going off what Griffin was saying, especially compared to what I went through in terms of my personal recruiting journey. definitely be very careful with the feelings of when your peers start their recruiting process and when they start getting their offers and accepting and things like that. You can definitely uh, have those feelings of missing out or that, you know, somehow you're not going to get it something or, and it just leads down to some very destructive thoughts. So just always be mindful with this recruiting process that you are on your own kind of personal journey. And just because someone is, gets an IB job in New York, well, okay, do you want to do IB in New York? No. So don't feel bad that people are getting IB jobs in New York if that's not what you want, right? And that just goes along with any sort of, jobs people get throughout the year. Um, so just always be mindful of that in this recruiting journey. Um, it's all about you and what you want. So just always be mindful and don't beat yourself up if things don't go your way initially. At the end of the day, it's what matters is, do you get a position that kind of carries you closer to where you want to be after you graduate? So just always keep that in mind.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we talked a little bit about like balancing recruiting with school. This is just a sample slide that many of you have seen probably before if you've attended some of these summer sessions. It's just very busy. Like it's almost like another job that you have, like when you're managing your internship search, in addition to your classes and Max, Anna, and Griffin, you can remember back to how crazy Mod 1 is. And I think it's just because everything's new. You're onboarding to Owen, you're starting a new experience, and there's just a lot of things that you're balancing and prioritizing. You're joining clubs. You have a lot of like group work in Mod 1 through the curriculum. And so you're working with teams where you're, trying to figure out and schedule and everything. So it's a lot going on. I would just be, very proactive about making sure your calendar and your Outlook is up to date and be prepared to kind of allocate, I don't know, 10 to 20 hours a week is sort of a common number that we throw out as far as time to spend on your internship search. So really quickly, we're going to go over some resources. So hopefully you all have seen communication. You've done the small group onboarding. If you haven't, we're going to go over this now. But the main thing that I would do over the summer is getting your resume in the Owen format and working through some of the resources that we have in 1220 in the resource library in the folder for incoming MBA 2026. Once you get your Owen resume in the template, like it's in the Owen format, it would be helpful to go ahead and schedule a resume review with a career coach so that you have that feedback and you're getting some revisions done on your resume prior to school. It's just a great thing to take off of your plate. I know many of you are still working. A lot of you are, moving from a different country, different time zones. So, but trying to do this one thing before you get to school, I think would be really, really helpful. Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about the resume book that opens up to our employers on September 3rd?
Yes. I would say now, I love this. I love what Anna's saying. Sorry, got to stop and notice what she put in the chat. She started off with a 5-page resume, and we know that you all have amazing experiences before you came to school, but your coaches can really help you whittle that down to something that's really attractive in one page and looks sort of similar. And when a recruiter is pulling through and looking at a resume, the same format really helps them eye things quickly. And so that's why we ask it to be in a certain format. And as Sandy mentioned, it's going to be available in the system to employers on September the 3rd. And so we've made our soft deadline that Friday prior to who wants to work on even though it's not Labor Day weekend for you all. Sorry, you do have class on that Monday. Bad news there. But you can have that all ready to go. And if you can get that done, prior to coming to school, that is just the bee's knees. That's the place to be, because let me tell you, you're going to have a stack. These folks can talk about you're just overwhelmed. And by that point, you're like, oh, I really wish I had already looked at that. So if you can get it done and submit it prior to, then you're good to go and it can be released. And so any types of experiences that you have, you can update your resume at any point and continue to hone it as you're going through the process with Sandy. And yes, Sandy, it looks like there's a question too about the peer coaches. I know that they're also involved with this, so I'm going to throw it back to you.
Oh, yeah. What was the question?
Oh, sorry. It
You
was
can read
just
it.
when is that matching process?
Oh, okay.
Right.
So each of you will have a second year MBA peer coach assigned to you. Every year, we hire about 25 second year students to be a CMC peer coach. And the way that I will make assignments is based on your profile and your career interests that you will populate in 1220. Since all of these second year or rising second years are in the midst of their summer internships, we don't make those assignments until August. And the expectation that I have of the peer coaches is to reach out to all of their students that first week of class. So that's when you would be expecting to hear from a peer coach, which will be a second year student. Does that help answer the question? Cool. Okay. So, just kind of wrapping up, you all are doing great by attending these CMC sessions and going over the overviews. We talked about how getting your resume done before orientation would be like super bonus, and also working on your LinkedIn profile. I know there's a workshop this afternoon, I believe, for LinkedIn. We have a lot of resources as well in that resource library, MBA, Incoming MBA 2026. There's some information about LinkedIn. And just with your LinkedIn profile, you're wanting to signal the area that you're pursuing and the direction that you're going as an MBA candidate versus like focusing on your previous experience. So that's just a little tip there. And then all of us are happy to meet with you. So scheduling an appointment just to connect with your CMC coach is great as well. And I think a lot of you have already done that. Some of the other things that are helpful as you start to think about career paths are researching job descriptions for different MBA internships. A lot of companies leave those job descriptions up, and you can find them doing your research. There are also resources in 1220. And Heather, when will they get access to?
Yeah, I just noticed in the chat someone was asking about specific LDP company lists and that type of thing. So there are resources that abound right now in 1220, but August the 1st, everything unlocks open and you get even more resources like the list you mentioned and many, many other things that you can noodle around in. I would set aside some time on August the 1st and just go ahead and look at that before, your brain is sponged out with all the other information that's going to happen during orientation. Take a look at 1220 because I don't know if these three can testify to living in the system a bit, but you kind of do. So you might as well get in there early and get acclimated to all of the extra tabs that you'll see on August the 1st.
Max, Griffin, Anna, anything to add to that as far as 1220 goes?
There's a way to link 1220 to your email Outlook calendar. Definitely do that.
Yes, if you haven't synced your calendar, definitely do that. Good call there.
Yeah, I would say a good rule of thumb is to check it every day at a minimum, just once a day, because stuff comes up so quick and stuff fills up so quick, especially for the jobs that everyone wants. So, um, yeah, just pay attention to it.
Good advice.
When
Yeah.
an employer
Oh,
comes,
go ahead.
as Griffin mentioned, when an employer comes, if it's very popular, you won't get to see them if you don't sign up as soon as possible. So keep an eye on it.
Yeah, get into a good habit of checking it very regularly, and things change, and you may log in one day and not see anything that you're interested in, and then the next day you see that three new events have been added. So always be very like cognizant that it's kind of a fluid system, and to be checking it regularly. All right. So with that, I mean, Max, Anna, and Griffin, y'all have already chimed in so much, but I wanted to kind of open it up to anybody that would like to ask questions for our three panelists, or for me, or for Heather.
I saw that Cody asked a question in the chat, and I feel like I can do a pretty decent job of explaining what operations and analytics is, because for me, definitely not logistics and supply chain. I wanted to learn operations for the project management aspect and data. It's very data heavy, so I've learned a lot of analytical skills and systems as well. And I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I would love to. That was actually one of the questions that I was thinking of. Like, I think everyone can define it kind of differently depending on what industry you want to go into, or what setting you want to go into. So I'd love to hear like Griffin and Max, like how you define operations and analytics, in terms of like the way you sort of frame it in your mind and what you've wanted to do with that.
Yeah, so my kind of quick and dirty way of saying what ops is pretty much like what do you as a firm, how do you basically bring your product or service to whoever your customer is? So pretty much every imaginable employer, firm, whoever is going to have some sort of operations segment to it. Um, so it's really just a matter of what within this very large umbrella of operations do you want to do? Because there's a lot of ways it can go. Like logistics and supply chain, yeah, those are definitely ops, right? Supply chain is basically, if you want another quick and dirty definition, it's all about how do you match supply with demand? Figuring out, how do you get your products to market? How much inventory should you hold on to? When should you order that inventory with lead times and things like that? So there's a whole bucket of stuff there. Or it's project management where you're basically, more or less like basically trying to figure out as a project, how do you get from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible? So ops has a lot of certainly is a very analytical heavy concentration. So me and Griffin are both engineers. Engineering to ops is a very well trod path. But obviously you don't have to be an engineer in order to do ops. But yeah, so it's definitely if you're tend to be a very analytical person, I think you'll definitely succeed well in ops. Um, but yeah, so ops is all about how do you bring your product or service to market and thinking about how it is exactly you want to do that. Do you want to be the most efficient? Do you want to be the most cost effective? Do you want to have the highest quality? All of these things and various assumptions you make have a whole host of cascading effects in terms of how actually you bring that product or service to market. So thinking through all those things and then executing on that basic strategy. So that's kind of my very quick and dirty way of describing ops.
Yeah, so my general description has always been it's the study of how a business gets stuff done. In finance, you're looking totally at the financial side. So your debt versus equity. Um, and how do you generate enough capital to keep the business going? The operations side is how do you bring a product to the consumer? So it is the bread and butter, bare bones side of business. And that's kind of how I think about it. It it kind of touches on everything you could see within really any sector other than specifically financial. Um, so it's kind of how I view it.
Thanks. Any other questions? Heather, do you see any other questions in the chat?
I don't think any new ones have populated. I think everything was somewhat covered. I'm sure there are more questions.
I see Cody
Yeah.
posted, different Cody posted a different question.
Oh, okay. Can the second years
yeah.
talk about how they manage multiple concentrations with their class schedules?
Yeah,
I can
I guess I can
definitely.
talk about that
Oh,
first.
Max, go first.
Yeah, so it's very manageable to do 2 concentrations. I think Anna can comment on getting past 2 gets a little bit harder to do. But yeah, 2 concentrations is definitely a very manageable thing to do. Like I said, if you average 4 classes a mod throughout your entire time, you're going to have more than enough total hours to graduate. And you're definitely, from an ops perspective, that's 12 hours of classes you have to take outside core. So you definitely have enough time to pick up a second concentration. Specifically why I chose strategy. You'll often find strategy is a very common concentration here, either a people's primary or secondary concentration, because strategy just kind of plays nice with everything. And kind of gives you that very kind of bird's eye top down view. So if especially, I personally chose to concentrate in strategy to kind of more or less position myself for like future high level leadership positions to kind of demonstrate that's an understanding I have and am good at. So I think definitely 2 concentrations is manageable. Again, if you want to take 1 ops class every mod, if you take an ops class and a whatever extra concentration you want once a mod, again, that gives you 2 other classes to kind of play around with. So I think 2 concentrations is definitely very manageable. Once you get to 3, it starts very much constricting your timelines. And so I would definitely be very hesitant to take on more than 2, unless you have a very good reason for doing so. For that, I'll defer to Anna. But otherwise, 2 concentrations is very reasonable.
I started off wanting to get 2, operations and strategy. There's a lot of overlapping classes, so those 2 concentrations work really well together. I also recommend kind of reaching out in classes that you may not be good at, because the whole point of being in business school is to learn. So I realized that I was just taking classes that I liked, and because of that, I had the HOP concentration. And I was like, oh, cool, handy. I only had to take the required class, which I was not planning to take. But after my experience in this specific internship, I know I need that class. So it's also, don't get too dead set on what concentration you're going to do, because maybe after your internship, like the position I'm in right now, it may change based on where you end up going. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I think you all touched on this. Like a lot of the classes are going to count towards a couple of concentrations. So it's very common that you see students with at least 2 concentrations. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any. Well, thank you.
I got one question, Sandy.
Oh yeah, great. Okay, good.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan. Can you go back to the elective curriculum slide?
Sure.
So my question's for the student panel. It's a 2-part question. So one, What were some of the classes that you guys took now that you're kind of in the middle of your internship, that some of these classes were beneficial and that maybe the company has recognized you're very knowledgeable or stood out amongst your peers at? And then the second part is, what are some classes that you wish you took?
Another huge plug for the business analytics class. Absolutely loved that class. And here in my internship, I ran a regression against two things that I was trying to compare, and people were so impressed with me. And I was like, yay, I did it. Also, data visualization. My team here uses Tableau, and I have skills in Tableau. And a lot of the employees who are on my team don't have formal training on that. So I can show them some tips and tricks, which is also very fun. So I highly recommend that class as well. One that I really want to take, which I am taking next year, is Management of Service Operations. So excited about that one.
So the role I'm in is really technical. It's kind of like more technical than I thought it was going to be. Looking at like physical systems, so I'm using a lot of my old degree as well as my new degree. Um, Something that's kind of helped me put everything into context, though, and I've talked with a few managers kind of through this lens, is that of supply chain management. It's kind of helped me determine why they have me doing what I'm specifically doing. And I've talked with a few plant managers, and I've actually I'm presenting in front of them next week, so I'm going to try to tie it in. Glad you brought this up because I'll do it consciously now. Um, but you know why we want to improve our process so we can, um, reduce our inventory time so we can get more orders out, increase our throughput, get more orders in, obviously make more money that way. So while you might not use, or while I might not use specifically, um, you know, the concepts in some of these classes, everything provides context to business in general. So no matter what business you're going into, operations is going to apply to it. And, you know, any function you have in that business is going to be working towards achieving the goal of becoming more profitable, um, whether that's increasing your throughput, decreasing your inventory times, et cetera. So, um, supply chain has definitely helped me put a lot of things into context here. Business analytics, I've talked with my manager about different ideas of tools we could do to improve things. And um, my company's currently in a stage where they're collecting a lot more data than they have been. They're getting bigger and bigger. They're implementing more and more technology. And I've suggested a few regression models that could be very useful for this team specifically. That's probably something I should act on in my remaining weeks. Um, but in terms of classes that have kind of helped me in my current role, helped me with contextualizing some of this, you know, operation. Those two specifically have come to mind.
I'll give a plug for spreadsheets for business analytics. For one, it's a sneaky prereq for a lot of different classes. So just for that fact alone, I would highly recommend taking it. Um, the first opportunity you'll have to take that would be in Mod 3. So definitely be on the lookout for that. The professor who teaches that, Larry LeBlanc, is an absolute treasure. And I absolutely love him and will defend him forever and ever. He does not look like a guy who would necessarily be that technically savvy, but that man knows more about Excel than you will ever possibly dream of possibly knowing. And definitely just that, I mean, I don't know. I'm an engineer. I knew how to use Excel, but even I learned stuff in that class. And definitely just like being more comfortable around Excel and using Excel because again, it's going to come up no matter what you do. So I would definitely highly recommend you take that, if for nothing else than to just, again, it's the prereq for a lot of classes. So just kind of makes your scheduling a lot easier going forward.
Also, to add on to that spreadsheets, I heard that Larry LeBlanc will answer questions if you have them during your internship. And I've reached out to several professors, not specifically him, but for help in my project, and it's been helpful. So recommend that as well. And I saw that someone's asking what's the difference between business analytics and spreadsheets, and I took both. And the major difference is they're two different systems. So spreadsheets is Excel and business analytics is Python. Depending on what you do, like they're so different, I can't describe that much how different they are. But in business analytics, it's one project the entire time, basically, kind of one at the end as well. And then spreadsheets, every class has different problems. So they're very different experiences as well.
I know for business analytics, it's very like it's a lot more conceptual than you would think it is. There's like a actual process behind business analytics and a line of thinking you have to apply to whatever you're doing. Whereas spreadsheets, you're learning how to use a tool, if that makes sense. And you don't, as far as I can remember, you don't touch Excel at all in business analytics. You only use Python, which is useful because um, it's kind of a medium, at least I wasn't very familiar with, and it helps you to learn the concept probably more so than you would if you just used Excel and like built-in functions in Excel that you're familiar with. So
And I didn't have any Python experience, sorry. But you don't really have to write it as well. She provides it and you just have to understand it and be able to change it, which was also a really cool learning experience.
The last question on that, is it worth it to take both of those or one or the other?
I say both.
Okay.
I would say they're both like wildly useful. And like in similar situations and totally different situations. So
Great questions, y'all. Well, thank you so much. I know we're at time, but round of applause to our rising second year students. Thank you so much, Max, Griffin, and Anna, for making time for this, for answering so many questions about navigating operations and analytics and what that looks like in a job for you all. Really, really appreciate you joining today. And yeah, thank you so much. It's great to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Griffin, do you miss Nashville?
yeah, definitely. My fiance is still up there, so I've made a few visits. I'm debating if I'm coming up this next weekend, but you know, the internship's drawn to a close, so I'll be up there soon.
It's busy. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm in rural Alabama. Definitely miss a lot of things about it. But
yeah. Well, it's good to see you. Thanks again so much for joining.
yeah, no problem at all. Glad I could be here.
I'm gonna stop the recording. If I can figure out how to do that. That was so weird with I literally couldn't see anything.